Alright, so I'm going to do a quick one here. It's related to the optimal lineups for Superspeedways, and I've made tons of videos about this stuff. You already know how I build lineups, and I'll do a quick summary here. And I might do another one before we do get to Daytona, but you have a ton of those. You can look through my videos, and it's me doing like half-hour, 40-minute, instructions, or not instructions, but like how I build lines step by step. Anyway, the main point is that I usually build positions. I don't deal with drivers, and so I want to show you the past six optimal, or not six optimal, but the past optimal lineups for, I believe I have 20 races here. I got 21 races here. So if you go back, like for example, and I mixed them up. I did not label the drivers. I didn't do anything like that. I want to show you basically how I look through. So this is the distribution of lineups based on the starting position for the last 22 races, or maybe not last two. I grabbed, I think it's from 2022 to 2016. I think that's the distribution I looked at. But like for example, this first one here is the final, and they're not all in order. But for example, this first one here is the Bubba Wallace win at Talladega, and so you had Brad Keselowski start 7th, and he finished 2nd. You had Kurt Busch start 14th, and Kurt Busch finished 4th. You had Bubba Wallace start 19th, obviously won the race. You have Chris Buescher start 24th, he finished 6th. You have Anthony Alfredo start 30th, finished 10th. You have Eric Jones start 26th, and he finishes 9th. And so these are all, or these are 21 previous optimal lineups just put here to show you how you should build lineups. I think if this is how you should be building lineups. What do you mean? That's real open. Well, look, don't play drivers, play positions. When you find guys who are gonna be chalk at positions, play guys around them and just get off the ownership. Hopefully you can see this. I don't even like if you can see this really good if my head's in the way. Let me take this off real quick. Hold on. Let's see. Take that off, and let me take this whole thing here. All right, so this is this is 22 of the previous, like I said, optimal lineups. And so you can see the distribution. So obviously this was a rain-shortened race. We didn't have a ton of wrecks in this previous Talladega race that Bubba Wallace won. Whereas when you look at this race here, this was an absolute wreck fest. The highest starter in this lineup was 26th. This typically leans more to how I build my lines because, sure, the likelihood of this being optimal and this type build being optimal is slim, but it's certainly a safer type of build. And going back to lineups that I don't typically tend to build, really top-heavy lineups. Pretty sure this is a Talladega race where you have the guy who started 2nd, the guy who started 4th, the guy who started 10th, 16th and 17th, and then the farthest back was 33rd. So this is more of either a green flag race, or where I'm assuming these guys were most likely lined up either teammates, or actually we can find out who these guys are. Actually, let's find what are we looking for? Starting positions, 2nd. Like I said, I didn't really want to, here, I'll put this back on. I didn't really want to deal with talking drivers per se, but I think these are good examples to look at. And so this one was, I'm assuming this was a Penske stack. Let me find, where are we at here? Starting, what am I looking at again? Starting 2nd and 4th. Where are we at here? Starting 2nd and 4th. This was Daytona. This was the summer race of Daytona. Kyle Busch started 2nd. Eric Jones started 4th. McDowell started 18th. Denny Hamlin started 10th, won the race. Ross Chastain started 33rd. And Kyle Larson started 17th. And these guys finished 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, and 7. So these were all top 10 finishes from these guys here. Moving on. Anyway, like kind of going back to at least like how I build lineups. Typically my ownership is really high on guys starting 30th on back, like I said, just to get that safety measure. It might not be optimal, but Superspeedways are the ones that I end up putting the most money on. I feel like I have a better return on investment than I do at other tracks. And so typically I build a lot of lineups here. But I think instead of being like, oh, so-and-so is optimal this many times, so-and-so was optimal this many times, or this driver, yeah, they're all situational. Like, why did Corey LaJoie become optimal so many times? Well, he was starting in the back. But when you look at positions, like, let's take a gander and look at 30th position right here. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times being optimal here in 30th. That's pretty crazy, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Do I know how to count? Am I counting correctly? Apologize. Like I said, don't ever do math when you're recording. Don't do math on a live stream. Don't do math in the video. Get all that done off the screen. But anyway, like, why does that mean no? Play the guy in 30th every time. I mean, yes, I would say, like I said, I tend to play more the guys probably 27th to 40th. But who are the guys starting here? So let's take an example. Obviously, the last race here, the Talladega race in this fall, which Jordan and I talked about on the live show. Like, nobody was owning nobody was owning Anthony Alfredo because he was surrounded by so many good guys. Anthony Alfredo started 30th here. This other 30th place finish is Tyler Reddick in the Daytona 2020 fall race. This 30th here is Anthony Alfredo again in the Dega spring race. Actually, this is Daytona Spring for Reddick. And then this one is, trying to look back, at least for context, I believe this one is Corey LaJoie in this one. Anyway, why is 30th popping off so much? And specifically, a lot of the races where we did have actual qualifying. And so typically, your back markers starting 40th, 39th, at least the back half of the 30s are bad cars. They're slow. They're qualifying there for a reason. Whereas the guys starting 32nd, 31st, 30th, 29th, 28th, 27th, 26th, these are the good cars that are going to make it, that just didn't qualify in on speed or qualify in on, or not in, but qualify good compared to, the Hendrick cars, the Penske cars, the Stewart-Haas cars. All the big teams are qualifying fast, so you get like, the B teams who are still good at plate races, just not having the qualifying times. And so you line that up with cars that are going to make it to the end of the race. You line that up with drivers who are somewhat competent. You line that up with being in a race where there's a high chance of people wrecking, and so you're going to gain positions just based on surviving. And then you put it in a situation where the guys starting, from 32nd to 26th to 25th to 24th are guys that are going to compete for the win. Guys that you think of like Michael McDowell, guys you think of like, or not compete for the win, but compete for a top 10, guys that you think of like Ryan Preece, as I just said, Anthony Alfredo, Tyler Reddick, guys who just qualify back there who finish well. You look at I don't even think I put this one on here because this one had 43 starters, but one of the optimal lineups for the 2015 fall Talladega race was Martin Truex Jr., who started dead last, finished 7th. Junior, who started 5th, finished 2nd. Logano started 10th, finished 1st. Clint Boyer started 29th, finished 8th. Michael Waltrip started 33rd, finished 13th. Edwards started 15th, finished 5th. And so when you at least see, 2 or 3 or sometimes 4 of your optimal lineups starting from, 20th on back, that's where it leans to, 4 from the back, 2 from the front. Now, it's just the distribution of where those 4 guys are. So let's take a look, and let's say 20th is your cutoff point. Where is, I don't want to, let me see. Let me do one thing here real quick. Okay, so let's imagine this is our little stack from the back, and you should be able to see this. At least I'm hoping that I'm not zoomed out too much. Should all fit in the screen. Should be. You might have to squint on your little phone, but you should be able to see it anyway. So if you're doing a 4-2 type of lineup, and I'll show you an example of the last Superspeedway that I built lineups, at least a lot of lineups for, and that was the Truck Series race last year in the fall. But anyway, when you're building, the 4-2 line, and let's say you are considering just 20th half of the field. So the last optimal lineup that we had was a 3-3. This one's a 4-2. This one's a 5-1. This one's a 4-2. This one's a 3-3. This one's a 5-1. That's what I mean by like 5-1, 4-3. And I've showed examples of this, but when we're actually looking at optimal lineups, personally, I'm going to lean more to 4-2s and 5-1s. I'll still build all 6 from the back. I'll still build, sometimes, at least 3 up here, because there are situations where this is a reverse. I mean, this is a 1-5, 1 from the back, 5 from up here. This is a 2-4 to where actually a 3-3. But, you know, a very aggressive, you know, 3 guys starting inside the top 10. This one's, you know, very aggressive. You have basically 4 guys starting inside the top 12. And then obviously the one I'm covering here, you know, was a complete stack from the back where your highest starter was 26. And I think this type of looking at, you know, how lineups are being built on top of, like, you can look at this and then overlay whenever we see the qualifying positions or after the duels for the 500 and really any super speedway. You can look at the distribution of optimal lineups and then kind of reverse engineer it of why were these guys optimal? Why did these certain lineups work in this situation? And you'll see that how the race played out. So it was either green, you know, a train on the top, not a lot of wrecks until the end of the race, or it was a wreck fest. A lot of big names got taken out, and so you see guys from the back gain positions very early and then just solidify, basically run inside the top 27 the entire race. Was it rain shortened? Was it a race where the intensity was picked up? Was it a playoff race? Was it the cutoff race for Daytona Spring? Once you look at the optimal lineups and then go through and understand why that race played out the way it is, or why this lineup ended up going, you can start seeing trends of like, and it would support of why you're saying like general statements, or why I say general statements of like a 4-2, a 5-1, why I play those, because typically that's the more type of distribution of the lineups that I want to play, or the positions that I want to play. It just then goes to, are you going to land on the right guys? That's why, I mean, at least the way that I see it, I know we're going to hear stack from the back a lot, and that is very much true. Like, you're going to at least want probably 4 of your guys in your lineup, you know, starting from 20th or back. That's just how I'm going to approach stuff. But it then comes into where you end up playing, who you end up playing. It then comes into ownership, and that's why, like, ownership is such, it's way more important than people think on super speedways, because ownership just gathers on certain drivers or big names or guys who have incredible track history. Like, let's just look at the let's find somebody in the green here who has had just tremendous track history here. Or not here, but in general. Like, LaJoie is going to pop off a lot because this is, I'm going to go through his Talladega finishes and then his Daytona finishes. But when you look at like a spreadsheet and you see, oh, how Corey LaJoie finishes, I mean, there's always going to be ownership on LaJoie because you see him finishing very well compared to where he'll most likely start from duels, which we'll say from qualifying. It all depends on where you start. But like when you see LaJoie, 22nd, 22nd, 28th, 16th, 7th, 11th, 32nd, 22nd. Then we go to Daytona, 17th, 9th, 21st, 8th, 6th, 18th, 31st, 40th, 11th, and 24th. Those are good finishes at places to where you have at least, you know, a 75% chance of getting wrecked. You see somebody continuously finishing well in these races. Eric Jones as well. You see a lot of green next to his name based on finishes. 9th, 27th, 2nd, 5th, 39th, 34th, my bad. 19th, 8th, 39th, 36th, 33rd. And then we go to Daytona, 12th, 39th, 35th, 18th, 23rd, 3rd, 1st, 36th, 9th, and 39th. So you see that he either wrecks or he's probably most likely going to finish inside the top 12. You know, when you see those guys on a grid and you look at how, you know, people are going to view their finishes and view how they've ran, and so you can bump up their ownership, or you can at least assume that ownership is going to go to them. Just find guys who are around them who either look like hideous, ugly, disgusting plays. Like, who has been incredibly ugly? I don't think this will be a great example because Larson will most likely start up front. I'm trying to find somebody who's not going to start up front. To use this as a better example here. Yeah, we'll do Larson. No, I'm trying to find who. Let's do Suarez for an example. I think he is a much better example here, and I guess I could be showing you this, but I'm already on my second screen. Anyway, so when you get Suarez starting most likely 19th in the 500, let's just assume he finishes 8th in his duel, or his 9th in his duel. No, he finishes 8th. Pole sitter moves up. He starts 18th. So when you're looking at, I wonder how Suarez is finished, and you look at his finishes at Dega and Daytona, which yet again I just put together. 23rd, 34th, 28th, 32nd, 12th, 16th, 10th, 15th, 19th. Then you go to Daytona, 20th, 36th, 26th, 40th, 33rd, 35th, 37th, 17th, 29th. when you look at his history, specifically at Daytona, that might scare people off. Be like, oh, I don't want to play Suarez starting 19th if he's just going to, get in a wreck every single time he goes to Daytona. That's an example of why I would want to play more Daniel Suarez, because it's going to scare people off of him. Not necessarily talking optimal, but talking how you can use ownership to build lineups and stuff. And so let me find this. Let me find an example of how I build lineups here real quick. This is going on way longer. I thought this would be a way shorter video. So I have, it's over here. This was the Truck Series. And side note, this is how I build. Typically for Superspeedways, I'll hand build all my lines. And I keep track of them just like I showed you the optimals here. And so this is for the Truck Series race. What was his name? Tyler Hill finished second. Don't remember. Vogelman won, didn't he? Anyway, so these are my lineups, and this is the distribution. Now, Truck Series is way more of a wreck fest than the Cup Series, and so typically I'll have even heavier ownership to guys in the back, and I actually did keep track of my ownership here. So this is ownership when I was 15 lineups in, and you can see the distribution of where I was going with people, just being incredibly heavy on, I think, obvious plays. Like Kligerman, unfortunate that Jennifer Jokob just absolutely pile drove the poor bastard in that wreck in 3 and 4. But you could see where my ownership goes, and so, I mean, I'm just stupid heavy on guys from 28th on back. And actually, was it this line or this one? I don't remember. One of these Tyler Hill lines finished, I think, 11th or 10th in the GPP. I can't remember which one it was. Anyway, I just wanted to use this as a quick example of how I build lines. I would encourage, if you, let me back out, if you have the time or the willpower and you build lineups for Daytona and Talladega, you should do this in general. I think it's a great, I'm more of a visual guy. Like I can look at optimizers and see, okay, I got 47% Cody Robaugh or whatever, but visibly seeing where those lineups are helps me out a lot to indicate either where I'm too heavy on or I'm too light on. But this is, I just want to throw this in at the end because we were just talking about. So when we build lineups here, obviously this is truck. I'm looking at optimal lineups for the Cup Series. But when you're here building lines for the Cup Series, you should have distributions more like probably these at the end or like this. It's ugly, it's terrifying to look at, but this is probably more how you're going to be optimal if you build lineups like this. Obviously, this one's terrifying. I would never play this line. It was optimal. I just cannot build lines being this aggressive. So if races end up going like this, where these positions are optimal, that's how it is. But I'm typically building more with at least 4 guys probably from the second half of the field, or at least 3, and then being probably really heavy on guys in the teens. But I just want to throw this out there because I was looking through videos and nobody had really illustrated what the optimal lineups looked like. It's always driver talk, and I think drivers are just irrelevant at plate races. I just want to see where the distribution of the positions were. And it's interesting, like I talked earlier, you get people starting 30th to where, I'm not saying 30th is a lock, but why is 30th being optimal more than, really any other position over the last, 5 years or whatever? And then you look and see the stories of why people are qualifying there, why that position is working out more. And, it backs up of being a good car that just qualified slow compared to the other good cars. And you can argue that with other positions. So just real quick, the guy starting 24th, that one seems to be clicking off a lot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have that one there. If you support us on Patreon, you can actually just look at these positions actually in numerical values, like 25th. I think it's 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. And so you can actually see where these lineups are. You can view all the past optimal lineups and obviously everything else that we have in the on the Patreon if you want to support us, since it is February 3rd if you want to go there. But anyway, just want to make this real quick. I didn't really see anything else talking about this on YouTube. Obviously not this year. Nobody's really making content yet, but I didn't see it in the past, and I just wanted to do this real quick. So thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. So support us on Patreon, so I don't have to take sponsorships or anything. So yeah, see you then.